Hello there. Hi guys, today we are talking about whether antidepressants work or not. And if they do or don't, do we have any alternative non-medical treatments for depression, apart from the standard like exercise and think happy thoughts? Now, as somebody who's suffered with depression for a long time, at least 10 years, I've been on antidepressants for a very long time as well. When I heard one of my fellow doctors say, obviously he didn't know I was on antidepressants, but he was talking about somebody else and saying, well, antidepressants aren't actually necessarily proven to work. And I was like, okay, right, that's interesting. Because I've always thought that they did. So today I take a little deep dive. I don't know if you can take a little deep dive, but a little medium level dive into the world of antidepressants and how we can treat depression. Now, I personally have found them useful, and I can tell the difference when I've taken it and when I haven't for a few days if I forget, which unfortunately is fairly regularly. Sometimes I will miss a day by accident. I started them in, I want to say 2016. I was in like third year of uni, and I went through, I think I had depression way before that, but it wasn't like severe enough that I needed to go on medication or anything. So, I've always struggled with maybe negativity and things like that, and just generally looking after my mood. But it kind of reached a pinnacle where I wanted to die all the time, and I didn't want to get out of bed, and I didn't really want to eat, and, the classic symptoms of depression. Everything seemed like a big fucking hassle, like brushing your teeth. Well, I ended up breaking it down into multiple parts in my head, and I'd be like, oh my God, I've got to take the duvet off, and then I've got to put my feet on the floor, and then I've got to walk 10 steps to the bathroom. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've not struggled with that, then you don't know what it's like to overthink just going to the toilet, or just something so simple as just going for a walk. It becomes a massive task because you're like, I have to do 20 things, and yes, they are very small, 20 things before I leave the house to go for a walk, and it becomes unbearable. So it reached a point where it was really interfering with my work, to be honest, I was at medical school actually, but interfering with my studies, and I basically, my mood was so bad. So I went on them. I started on Sertraline and haven't looked back. That's the one I've been on. Now, for me, antidepressants, they felt like I was giving up, like I was admitting failure, like I was admitting that there was something wrong with me. And I'm sure many of you have felt that too. So look, we're all here for each other, okay? And the way that people said it to me was, it's not, you're not giving in to this disease. You're not stuck with it forever. It's like if you broke your leg, and this was always the analogy people used, if you broke your leg, would you hobble round on your broken leg and never let it heal? Or would you use crutches and have a cast, and then when it's healed, you can take those away? And I was like, yeah, fair enough. So crutches, antidepressants are your crutches. Now, I've been on them for a very long time. I came off them for a bit because I wanted to go into the military. You had to be off antidepressants for a certain amount of time. Now, I came off them very quickly, which was a bad idea for me. I came off them within 6 months, so that's not including the coming off and etc, etc. That's I went on them, tapered up, and then tapered back down very quickly. And that was definitely a bad idea. I relapsed 100%, and my depression was at its worst when I was working as a doctor. What year was that? 2018. That was the time that I literally struggled to fucking exist. Oh God, I would cry on the way to the gym. I didn't want to go, but I would force myself to go, and I didn't want to go so badly that I cried all the way there. I remember one particular time, it didn't happen every time, but one particular time I cried all the way there, and then I was I had to stop crying because I was there, and then I did a really shit workout, went home and cried some more. And yeah, that was really hard. Duh. So I think, there was a lot of like, I think the suicidal thoughts were probably the worst. It was like something small would happen and then I'd be like, oh, I just don't, like, I kill myself, I can't do this anymore. And it sounds very flippant now that I talk about it now, but obviously when you're in that headspace, that is how little it takes for you to get to that point where you're like, yep, let's think about killing myself. But obviously I obviously didn't do it, but I never made any like attempts or never made any, it was always very fleeting thought. And I think I remember when it came back when, no, actually that was anyway, we don't need to talk about my depression story forever, do we? You can get that, I don't know. I do actually have another episode on that. I think it's called, so I don't know, something a while ago. But that was basically my depression story, but that's it shortened. So we've already talked about the symptoms of depression. Low mood is the most common one. And the way that we measure depression is on a questionnaire. Would you believe it? Like, there's no blood test, which kind of surprises me a little bit. Like, why can't we measure like serotonin or something? I was thinking this earlier and I didn't come up with an answer for it. So if you guys know or like want to research that and let me know, why can't we physically measure depression? Maybe we can, but maybe we just don't need to. Maybe we think the PHQ-9, which is the questionnaire, maybe we think that's good enough. And depression is based on subjective feelings, or maybe it's just historic and we've just never moved away from it, or maybe it's a money-saving thing, and I don't know. So severity of depression is measured on that scale, and you answer, is it 9 questions? I mean, that would make sense because it is PHQ-9. You answer, I think it's 9 questions, and I would have to do that, and I think when I was at my worst, I was like moderate to the higher end of moderate. I don't know if I was ever severe, but it's kind of hard when it's subjective. You're like, I don't know, like it varies, but I might have tipped into the lower end of severe. Like I was never like hospitalized, or I never saw a psychiatrist for it or anything. So I was never like severe, like catatonic, cannot move, cannot leave the bed. Like I did still go to work, but it was a struggle, like a big, big struggle. And I feel like if people have never struggled with depression, they're not going to get this. Like you're not going to get it. You might just think, oh, Dawn was a bit sad. Poor Dawn, she was sad and she wanted to kill herself because she can't get out of bed. Well, I'm telling you what, you go and do it. And let's see what happens to you, person who doubts me and everyone else and thinks they're pathetic because they can't handle depression. Well, I'm sorry, sir, madam, I don't know who you are, but if you've not experienced it, you don't know. So, no uterus, no opinion, as Rachel Green would say. But no depression, no opinion. So, there we go. I've been thinking about the causes of depression. Like I said, depression has been like a part of my life, a part of me for a long time. I think, oh God, there are so many causes. I can't even begin to start, because I mean there's the obvious causes like environment, genetic, in terms of if your parents have got it, but whether that's environmental or genetic, who knows. And then I think there is some kind of unknown deep-seated either genetic mutation, epigenetic alteration, or change in your brain, or maybe it's the way, environmental factors or something that does something internally in your brain. I'm trying to make this fairly simple. I am a doctor, but I don't want to be talking about specific, not that I necessarily know, but talking about specific receptors and stuff and using complicated words. This is not a medical podcast. I may be a doctor, but a medical doctor, but that doesn't mean that I'm I want to medicine, but it does mean that I have a bit more of an understanding of the body, and I have done some research before today's episode, so listen up, guys. But I genuinely think, and I'm sure other people think too, I'm not making any groundbreaking hypotheses here, that there is obviously something going on in your brain and the body. I can't even verbalize it. It's crazy. There's so many receptors and transmitters, neurotransmitters, hormones, and different levels of every like precursor, which is like the molecule that's made into the end product. There's so many factors that are just crazy that you could think about, that maybe it's, maybe you do have a low level of serotonin, but why is that? And is it because you're really stressed, or you've got something like a specific thing in your gut that doesn't make you absorb certain nutrients like fats and things? Or is it like small amounts of like dopamine excess, maybe that results in a lower amount of serotonin? Or do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many variables and so many options that, yes, we know the causes, the general causes, like the things that make you worse and better. I need to drop my paper then. And yes, we know the general causes, but what are the nitty gritty causes? Like the fucking fine print, the chemical level. And maybe nobody really cares. We've got treatment for it, whatever. But I kind of do. Like, can we measure, or like, can we change something? Is it a deficiency in my brain that causes me to be depressed? Like, do I have a serotonin receptor deficiency, or serotonin receptor excess for some reason? Like, do I have a gene that's more expressed than other people? Or is it because of the way I was brought up? I don't know. Like, anyway, that's very interesting to me. Not interesting enough for me to go into a laboratory and spend my hours researching it, though. So I would love it if somebody told me, but I don't think I'm going to be winning any Nobel Prizes anytime soon, because I just don't like research. Like, I just can't be asked with it. I'd rather just read the paper. So anyway, I read some papers for you. I did no research, but I read some papers. Now, there are many, many different types of antidepressants, but when I talk about antidepressants today, what I'm talking about is SSRIs, and that is selective serotonin. I was like, there's two S's there. What does the other one stand for? Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. That will be your Sertraline is an SSRI. I think fluoxetine is. I'm pretty sure citalopram is. Those are like the three main common ones. But there are also some other ones like, we don't really need to go into them, but there's some old school ones called tricyclic antidepressants. They have a lot of symptoms though. I think that would be amitriptyline. We don't really use those for depression anymore, to be honest. MAOIs, monoxonamine inhibitors, something like that. Anyway, we don't use them, so that's why I don't really know them. We just don't really, like, they're just not clinically used. We use mainstay is SSRIs, and then anything above that is pretty much like the psychiatrist, maybe the GPs prescribe them. I work in an emergency department. I'm not going to be prescribing an antidepressant. So, it's not, you don't prescribe them like acutely. It's more of like a long-term medication. So either the GP would do it, or they talk to a psychiatrist, or a psychiatrist prescribe it. Like something more, because there are other ones such as trazodone, which is in its own class, but and other types of antidepressants. So it's pretty good that we have all these medications, isn't it? It's pretty fucking good. Like, and then I'm thinking, okay, sorry, I'm going back a bit, but I'm thinking, like, I was reading something about whether schizophrenia was due to some kind of serotonin or neurotransmitter defect, and that is why, and then you could inherit that defect, as in, I'm talking about like a genetic defect, a mutation that would cause either, I don't know what it was, whether your receptor or the serotonin production itself, and whether that defect was passed on genetically, inherited, and that is why it's more common in families, which is super interesting, because if we knew that, then we would potentially be able to genetically eliminate, if that's even ethical, I don't know, but a lot of people would argue that it's not, but we could genetically remove the predisposition to have certain diseases. That is coming, my friends. I'm telling you, that is coming. Genetic modification, whether it's possible to be done in human adults is unknown, but I'm sure it is. But it's probably riskier. The place you want to do it is an embryo, and people do not like messing with them. I get it, but that is that's where their genetic makeup is so malleable, because you only have 1 or 2 cells rather than fucking millions that you are not going to be able to alter particularly easily. Now, we would be able to turn genes on and off, but I don't think we would be able to unmutate specific genes. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds. I mean, that's kind of exciting, I think. I mean, it does hold very confusing ground for, what do you call it when Hitler wanted to modify everybody so they were... Oh, fucking, you know what I mean, right? There's a word for it. It's going to come to me later. But anyway, basically, like, when you make everybody genetically, like, either perfect, or you can alter people, like, babies' genes to make them blue hair, blonde-eyed. Well, no, wait. That was the wrong way around. Blue-eyed, blonde hair, blue eyes. That's the way to say it. Okay, so SSRIs, serotonin selective... It's really hard to say. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It does what it says on the tin, really. Selectively attaches to only, when it says selectively, it means only attaches to serotonin receptors, and it blocks serotonin reuptake. So if you've got a receptor and you've got serotonin like floating about, and the receptor is blocked, then it means that the serotonin can't be attaching to that receptor and be used. So you've got more serotonin floating about, basically. Now, that's where I come in, it comes into, like, do I, as a depressed person, or a person who's more prone to depression, do I have fewer receptors? More receptors, sorry. So my serotonin is depleted quicker, or do I generally have less serotonin? And is that influenced by, my history, or anyway, I keep saying it, my genes. Now, let's get on to the question of, do antidepressants work? Now, there's been lots and lots and lots of studies, because they are so heavily used nowadays. And generally, although placebos do work in treating depression also, I think it was over 6 to 8 weeks, 20 to 40%, or 40 out of 100, 20 to 40 out of 100, or maybe 20 to 40? Yes, 20 to 40 out of 100 in the placebo group showed resolution of their symptoms, or I don't know if it was full resolution or reduction. And in the treatment group, 40 to 60 showed reduction or resolution. So there is some borderline overlap there. But it still, the treatment, you could, if it's 20 to 40%, you could say, well, 20% versus 60% is quite a lot, if you're taking it in the extremes. And it depends on the study, realistically, and the people who you're studying and things like that. So, and obviously the different types of antidepressants that you are studying. So, I mean, that shows, and that is pretty across the board. Like, there's a lot of studies, they've all shown similar improvements. So I do think, as I do this podcast more and more, I think, wow, the human body is fucking amazing. Like, this is why I went into medicine, because I think it's so outstanding. Like, I can't even comprehend it. Like, there is so much that's going on inside my body right now. I don't know about it. I'm just thinking about it, and it's coming out as soon as I think it. It's instantaneous, and it's insane to me. And now my eye's twitching, so I don't know what that means, but maybe it's a sign for help. Help! Eye twitches once for help. No, it's twitching so much. I don't know, apparently it means you're tired, but that's definitely true. I am tired, I'm not going to lie. So, if antidepressants have been shown to, even though there is some overlap, because you could say in some studies it was 40% and 40%, so there wasn't any improvement, but there was quite a big range. Anyway, if they work for some people, who do they not work for? Now, there are 3 types of depression. Well, 3 types of unipolar depression. Now, when I say unipolar depression, I mean not like manic depression or not like bipolar or something like that. So when people they go like manic and then they go really depressed, so that's bipolar. So we're talking about just depression. So the classic depression, I don't think it's ever being called as unipolar depression except from today, and I read it somewhere and I was like, oh, okay, fine. So I'm just talking about simple, boring old depression. So also, just to point out, in low levels of antidepressants, they do actually help in anxiety as well. So you can use them for anxiety at lower doses. Anxiety and depression tend to come together, to be honest. So if you treat one, you're generally treating the other, and then once you've got that sort of crutch of antidepressant in the background, then you can start, you can actually get out of bed and go to appointments and not want to kill yourself every day. Then you can start working on, ways to improve your mental health. And it's like, if you broke your leg, you would use painkillers in order to be able to move around. And then when your leg is healed, you would do physiotherapy and stuff, right? And then when your leg is healed, you can come off the painkillers because the pain from the broken leg has dissipated. So who do they not work for? Now, antidepressants, the stats that I said, only really work for moderate to severe depression. In mild depression, I don't think there was any change in the placebo and the medication group, because who knows, but it can obviously, when it's mild, it can obviously just resolve spontaneously through changing things. And the issue with depression is, and with many diseases, is it's a vicious cycle. You feel shit, so you don't want to get out of bed. And you don't want to exercise, but exercise will make you feel better. Then you feel guilty about it because you haven't done it. And then maybe you eat or don't eat. Depends which way you go, depending on your depression and your symptoms. And then you either get fat or get more sad. And then you don't want to go out even more. And then you're just crying. And so it's a vicious cycle, and it's that, I think it's the medication that helps to break that cycle. If you're in mild depression, you're probably still able to carry on, leaving the house and socializing and things like that. And actually just some talking therapy and things like that can help alleviate the symptoms without any medications. Now, there are also other depression causes, but I'd like to point out that these are temporary and over time will dissipate on their own. Number 1, alcohol. Now, everybody thinks, alcohol gives me a good time. I'm so fun when I'm on alcohol. When I'm drinking alcohol. Ooh, but that short-term loss of inhibitions depletes your GABA. Don't even ask me. That's an acronym, GABA. It's an inhibitory, I think, neurotransmitter. Look, brains ain't my thing, but I think they're pretty cool. I should get that on a t-shirt. Brains ain't my thing, but I think they're pretty cool. And it stands for something. GABA. Who fucking knows? Gamma something, I reckon. But I don't know, and I can't bother to look it up, and I also can't bother to say it because it will be very... So GABA is either inhibited, I said this last time, I can never remember which. It's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. So if you block it, then you are disinhibited. So anyway, when you are hungover, you often feel sadder and more anxious because of the change in neurotransmitters in your brain. God, I really got myself into some shit here, didn't I? Talking about neurotransmitters. Well, there we go. Because it's not something I talk about or think about every day, to be honest. I do have a medical degree, but I'm not a neurophysiologist. It's very far from my remit, and I haven't studied properly, learned biochemistry in a very long time, not gonna lie. So alcohol. Situation. Okay, so there are certain things that you don't treat if you have depressive symptoms. Number 1 is bereavement, you have to wait, I think it's 6 months. After a big bereavement or a death of, well, same thing, or death of a loved one or friend or whatever, you wait 6 months because the symptoms of grieving and being depressed are very similar, and you don't want to be, there's no point in treating depression, which is a sort of clinical diagnosis in itself and a clinical as in a pathophysiological alteration in your brain chemistry. You don't want to be treating that when you don't really need to, you know. There's a situation at hand, you need time to resolve it, basically. I've also put pain. That can make you pretty sad, but not necessarily depressed, because pain can only be temporary sometimes. Obviously, you do get chronic pain and things, but also being a refugee or being homeless or something like that, or cost of living crisis, fucking hell. So there are things that are temporary that may make you feel sad, but aren't necessarily depression. Now, I think depressive symptoms have to be going on for like, is it a month or 4 weeks? It's like 6 to 8 weeks, I think, to be considered as depression, and you need to fulfill the sort of criteria which I talked about with the PHQ-9. Caffeine, I didn't know that made you potentially not depressed, but like it doesn't elevate your mood, let's put it that way. It dips your serotonin, the happy friend that we've all come to know and love, serotonin. It dips it. So that was a sad fact to learn. Processed foods. Now, they actually cause a sudden increase in serotonin, I found out. But the result is that then you've run out. It's all fucking gone. So then you're like, oh, now I'm sad because I've got no serotonin left. So it can actually make your mood worse after eating shit food, like sugary food, refined foods and things like that. I did actually find a paper on that as well. Like, high carbohydrate meals do increase your brain serotonin level. And it just said that you need to eat less carbohydrates in the next meal, basically. There were a lot of like websites that were just spitting out information that had no real basis behind it. And I only really wanted to go for like proper papers that were like studies rather than like Neil's nutrition guide, you know, like a random blog that had no basis behind it. So I hope I am giving you like proper studied information here, but I haven't looked at all of the information, not gonna lie. So, temporary thing. Oh, recreational drugs. Forgot about that one. Namely, MDMA or ecstasy. Because they make you happy because they release enormous amounts of serotonin, like give you a massive rush of it, you feel really fucking happy, and then the next day or the day after that and the day after that, it's called Wednesday blues. So you go out on a Friday or Saturday night, you're still sad by Wednesday because you've lost all your serotonin, and it's like, your brain's like, oh, please come back, serotonin, I need you. So you just feel really sad. So that is called a come down, my friends, if you didn't know. So again, it will come back. Pain is only temporary, or recreations are only temporary. So what are the alternative ways if we're not on antidepressants? Maybe you've got mild, or you are prone to relapses like me, maybe. I don't know if I am, but prone to relapses of depression. So how could you treat yourself in a different way? There are the obvious ones, okay? I don't really want to hash over them too much. There were a couple of pearls of wisdom that I did want to share with you though. Reduce alcohol, duh. Change the temporary things. So try and reduce your caffeine intake. If you've gone through a recent bereavement, try and, that will need, it's just time to heal. Trying to change your situation, if you can, depending on what it is. If you're in a really shit house share and you don't like your housemates, then maybe you need to move out. Reducing your processed foods, exercising more, trying to sleep better, reduce your stress. So cortisol, and cortisol is a hormone that's released by your adrenal glands, which are on top of your kidneys, like little hats. They're so cute. And basically, cortisol decreases serotonin production, I believe. So the lower cortisol you have, i.e. lower stress, the happier you'll be. in essence. Sleeping better, obviously your brain needs to sleep. Like, it can't just be on the go all the time. This is more actually a dopamine thing. So your screen, okay, so things that release dopamine, buying stuff online, watching TV shows, watching TikTok. Please fucking stop. I wish people would stop watching TikTok. Doing things that just give you instant gratification. Sex, for instance. Masturbating, watching porn. That's why people get addicted to all of these things. Literally all of them. Because they all release dopamine. And dopamine makes you want to repeat that behaviour, and they are all high dopamine releasing things. Now the thing is, what I've noticed is I feel very sad. I don't know if the dopamine and the serotonin are linked, but I feel very sad when I do all of the things that are dopamine releasing, i.e. watch loads of Netflix. Namely because I don't move, I don't exercise, I don't leave the house, and also I just feel so brain depleted, and I think it is dopamine depletion, that I'm just my brain feels dead. And yeah, this might be a serotonin episode, but dopamine is important too. Don't forget about her. She's important too. And so is oxytocin, actually. So oxytocin is released when we socialise, when we bond with people, or when you have a baby and you bond with that baby. But I don't recommend just having a baby just so you can get an oxytocin fix. That's quite a big commitment, also a 9-month delay. So it's quite expensive. There are definitely easier ways. You could just go out for a pint. Although pints are expensive nowadays, not as expensive as having a baby. And not as long as a commitment. But anyway, trying to reduce high dopamine releasing activity, watching TV, buying online, shopping online, because it always gives you that oh yeah, that felt good, I'll do it again feeling. And today and yesterday I watched almost no Netflix. It was fucking great. I've been feeling so shit because I've just been, I got back from a festival, which didn't help, but also then I was just monging in front of the TV on the sofa, and I was and I just felt like I didn't move, I was just really feeling quite lazy. So, oh boy, have I been mowing my lawn left, right and centre? Yes, I have. It was so long. It was I want to say something really rude. I'm just going to say it. It was like a nun's pubic region. There was so much fucking grass there. Couldn't believe it. It took hours. And I've got a battery powered lawnmower as well, so the battery kept running out. I had to keep charging it. Anyway, we don't want to hear about that. But that made me feel happy. It sounds fucking tragic, doesn't it? Dawn is happy because she mowed her lawn. Sounds like a euphemism. But because I wasn't sitting here watching Netflix all day, it felt great. Now, there are times where you need Netflix, where Netflix needs you. But do you need to watch it for 8 hours a day? No. Do you need to watch TikTok for 8 hours a day? Absolutely not. 8 minutes, maybe? 8 hours? No. Who does that? Try and get outside for 15 minutes a day. In the UK, technically, I believe that is all we need. 15 minutes of sun to get our vitamin D in. You have to have your, arms out though, some skin. You can't go out with a balaclava on or whatever. So have some skin out and get tan. No, don't get tan, because tan is bad. But get some vitamin D, and that will also make you happy. Also, you've left the house, you've gone for a walk, you've exercised. Maybe you've gone and bought a watermelon from the greengrocer. Bonus. Then you can eat watermelon and then you're hydrated and your brain's thanks so much for that. B vitamins also help. I'm actually going to do another episode in maybe next episode, or a soon to be recent episode of, do we need all these fucking vitamins, especially the gummy ones? They are making a killing. They do taste good, but that is upcoming. That is coming up next. So however you get your B vitamins, God, they are so important, aren't they? But it's why, I guess the question is, why can't we just get it from food? Now, there are some things that are more difficult, but look, I'll go into it in the next ep. Now, there is also a supplement called 5-HTP, which I wanted to talk about briefly. 5-HTP is a direct precursor to serotonin, i.e., as we talked about with precursors earlier, it's a bit like how milk and sugar and cocoa is made into chocolate, for example. Cocoa would be 5-HTP, and then it's made into chocolate, which is serotonin, which is fucking great because it releases, I'm pretty sure, does it release serotonin? It releases a neurotransmitter that makes you happy. So chocolate does, I mean. So now, I'm not telling you to go and buy this. There have been some issues with this drug. It's still being heavily researched, so I would stay clear from it for now. If you are also on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, as I am, or antidepressants as they're more commonly known, then I would stay clear of this because there is something called serotonin syndrome. Now, if you take this, it's very rare, serotonin syndrome, but if you take this drug that is a direct precursor to serotonin, i.e. nothing can be made except serotonin from 5-HTP. So all of the 5-HTP that you take will go to serotonin. Whereas, and we'll talk about it in a minute, there's something called tryptophan, which is an essential amino acid, meaning essential means you need to consume it because your body cannot make it, and an amino acid is part of a protein. So tryptophan is also is sort of competitively, it competes to get into the brain basically. And there are also other molecules that can be made from it. So basically it doesn't just go, okay, you've got 500 tryptophan, you will now make 500 serotonin. It like disperses itself around the body. There are other things that also go into the brain. Not all the tryptophan gets in there. So it's like you're never going to overload your brain with serotonin. Whereas with 5-HTP, like I said, all of it, mostly, I assume not 100%, but all of it, most of it, will be transported to the brain to be turned into serotonin. And that can cause something called, in rare cases, now I don't know, because not many people take this drug or supplement, but in some cases could cause something called serotonin, which is an overload of serotonin in your brain. Now, there are loads and loads of symptoms for it. Some of the worst ones are like abnormal movements, seizures, which can be life-threatening. But again, I've never seen it. I've literally never seen serotonin syndrome. It's very, very rare. I'm not saying you're going to get it, but it's just something to be cautious of. It's something that we needs more studying. And although it sounds great in theory, I wouldn't personally take it right now. And I did think about it, but having done some more research into it, it kind of scared me a little bit. So I was like, no thanks. Now, something I do take and I notice a massive difference with is I actually take vegan version. So it's made from algae, but I take algae omega-3. Now, I don't know if specifically my omega-3 has tryptophan in it, but there are supplements which have tryptophan in, and omega-3 generally just contributes to good overall health, I would say. It's a fatty acid, and it can be made in so many things. Like, I fucking love omega-3. I'd recommend it. I would. A vegan one's good too, because the cod liver oil tastes, doesn't it? And also, like, cod liver, like, do you ever think about that? Like, it's cod liver oil. I usually just say it and then think, whatever. But there are foods which you can take. Now, you need to just look on the back of the packet whether your omega-3 tablets or whatever have tryptophan in, because 90 to 95% of your serotonin in your whole body is made in your intestine or your gut, more colloquially known. So if your gut health is not there, then you are more likely to have an inflamed body system, just generally speaking. Inflammation is a real problem, and I think a lot of people are inflamed and don't realise, and I think it could be reduced with diet control. And there are a lot of inflammatory foods out there, particularly sugary foods, cakes, etc. And when I say inflammation, it's very general. But anyway, we're not talking about inflammation. But you can get something called leaky gut syndrome, which is, I believe, due to inflammation. And then you can't absorb as much tryptophan to make serotonin. Anyway, your tryptophan is found in, and you can only get this from eating food, so good luck to you all. Or a supplement, I suppose. Oily fish, salmon, or just fish. Beef, chicken, turkey. So like meats, basically. Healthy meats, you don't want to be eating like frankfurters, which I was vibing over the festival, not gonna lie. Eggs. Now those are all, if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, then you can't have those, but there are other things. You can just look this up online, but I'll tell you them anyway. Spirulina is like the highest one, and that is a powder. It's green, and you can put it, well, the green spirulina is green, but you can get like blue, I think, as well. But you can get it as a powder, and you can put it in smoothies or shakes, like protein shakes, and it's like so bright green. It's actually kind of beautiful, like plant green. And it basically tastes of not really much. It just tastes a bit earthy. I don't really know what it is, but it's a powder. I'm sure it's a plant. And yeah, that has loads of tryptophan in it. So I love my health food powder. I put them all into a smoothie when I have one. It's like a fucking great time for my body. Another thing is edamame and tofu. They are... edamame are like soybeans, the ones in the little pods. They both actually have... Actually, no, I won't go there. Nuts and seeds. Basically, all of these things have healthy fats in them. And there's another thing that I want to talk about, which is, I've actually got some on my table right now, now I don't know if this specifically contributes to making, I don't think it directly contributes to making tryptophan, but it does contribute to your overall gut health, which is super important. And that is fermented probiotic, prebiotic foods. So I've got some kefir, Kefir, and it's like a yogurt, and it just tastes like yogurt, but like a little bit, tiny bit more sour, but like not in an unpalatable way. And I was just eating some, but you can put it in smoothies, you can put it in cereal, you can just have it as like an evening snack, and you can get vegan or like non-dairy kefir as well now, although it is a bit harder to find. This one is a cow one, I believe, or a dairy one, I should say. But people are really into probiotics at the moment, but realistically you can just have you can have some kefir, or you can have kimchi is also really good. Sourdough, again, it's like all that fermented stuff. And it basically provides a nice environment for your gut bacteria to be like, I'm having a good time. Which means that your gut is just like the big functioning, like we all think your heart is your brain, but your gut is so important. Like it literally has millions and millions and millions of bacteria, and if they're not happy and you've got too many bad bacteria, you are having a bad time. I wonder how much realistically we don't know about our gut health, and it is becoming a thing now. You can actually get tests for it online, and there's just so much it contributes to. And there are very increasingly and concerningly high numbers of young 30/40-year-old people getting bowel cancer, and we don't know why. And we're wondering, is it because of what we're eating, processed foods and meats and things like that? So looking after your gut is just so important. I just can't even comprehend or stress it enough. Anyway, I think that'll be it for today. I've got to go to an acting session. They've all restarted again. We've had a little summer break and we're back. So yeah, next week, sometime, I want to be talking about those naughty little vitamins that my boyfriend, Tom, fucking millions of. He has the gummies though, which seem like a great time to me. But anyway, we'll get into it more. Is it just a money-making scheme, or are they actually useful? I upload every Monday and Thursdays. If you liked it, please give it a like. I actually did some research for this one, so that'd be great. And, I spent my spare time between lawnmower charges researching it. And yeah, if you're on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts, please give it a little rating. That would be super useful. Like I always say though, 5 stars or don't bother. No, I shouldn't be saying that, but 5 stars or don't bother. And yeah, share it with your friends, family, anyone you think might find it useful. And I will see you next week. Thank you for listening, and I love you lots.